Yeah, so with the younger skin, has anyone answered? No, not yet. Younger skin prevention is going to be more things like needling, doing gentle peels. We might do a bit of a 590 rejuvenation on their skin, or a 580 if you've got the 580. And where we're not creating too much heat, we're creating a little bit of trauma, we're just maybe getting a little bit of collagen synthesis, but we're not really looking at skin laxity. So what are some of the treatments that I would do on someone who's older? Someone who's older, I will be doing treatments. Flossy man. We've got sonophoresis, peels, needling. Actually, sonophoresis, there you go. Someone that's got a younger skin, we could be doing sonophoresis, infusion, electroporation. So it's more sort of you're maintaining the youth of the skin rather than really wanting to help with laxity, because they don't have lax skin right now, not in their 20s and not in their 30s. You might have someone who potentially has been out in the sun for a considerable amount of time, and they need a little bit of assistance if they're older, mainly probably with pigmentation rather than skin laxity. But usually 20s and 30s, we're not going to be treating them for skin laxity. We're going to be plumping their skin and helping with potentially fine lines or preventing the fine lines. Someone in their sort of late 30s, depending how well they've looked after their skin, so say from their 30s to 40s, we're going to be starting to do things that are a little bit more deeper, so more dermal remodeling than more superficial treatments, like we did with the younger skin. The other thing that a younger skin, all skin, might be epiblading. Microdermabrasion, you need to be careful not to over exfoliate the skin. The same thing with epiblading really, but the way we teach epiblading is quite different. We use a gliding medium, and we don't over exfoliate either. So with the 30s, 40s, we're going to be looking at, again, more needling for every age actually, because needling not only does it help with, yes, collagen stimulation, and your fibroblast production and so forth, but it also helps with the normalizing the way the skin basically works. So if you've got an older skin, everything starts to sort of deteriorate and slow down. Needling optimizes and normalizes the way the cells work. So needling for all ages, but like I said, those who are in the 30s, 40s, you could potentially look at radiofrequency. You could do radiofrequency needling if they've got quite deep lines, so RF needling, and you've got laser genesis. Now, IPL would be suitable for someone who's in their, say, 30s and 40s as well. I love IPL because it's multifaceted. So not only are we going to get plumping of the skin, but we're also going to get a little bit of clearance of that pigmentation that they've got. If they've predominantly got pigmentation, then we're going to go to our 530 or our 560. But with our 580, 590, it's going a little bit deeper, a little bit more deeper than that papillary layer. So your 530, 560 is blocked by hemoglobin and blood, and you'll find that that wavelength just doesn't travel too far down. But then your 580, 590 is going to go a little bit deeper and heat up the dermis in order to get that collagen stimulation and renewal. So collagen, elastin, glycosaminoglycans. So that's a precursor to hyaluronic acid. So your 580 would be great for, your 30s and your 40s. Laser genesis is another one. So if you've got a long pulsed YAG, ND YAG, laser that is, then you could do your laser genesis on that skin type as well. Like I said, radiofrequency will help, definitely. Potentially not necessary, because the difference between, say, where we're delivering heat in nanoseconds or milliseconds, so IPL and laser, you're going to get collagen renewal, whereas when you're heating up the skin for minutes, so we're talking radiofrequency on the other hand, not only do we get collagen renewal, we're also going to get collagen contraction as well. So we're not only we're just denaturing the collagen, we're actually causing it to contract. Very similar to when you put your favorite saggy, baggy jeans in the dryer. If you put them in for a minute or two, what happens to the jeans? They probably don't really shrink that much, but when you put those jeans in the dryer for a good 10 minutes with the heat, the extended time of that heat, what we're finding is we're getting contraction. And so I was going to answer this later, but while we're here, and that's the difference between your IPL and your radio frequency. IPL is going to plump the skin, whereas radio frequency is not only going to plump the skin, but it's also going to help with skin laxity and tighten it. And so that's also for the body and arms, legs, stomach. So RF would be great for those areas where we've lost that laxity. What other treatments do you think would be amazing for those who are in their 30s and 40s? Who else can tell me? I've got a few there, but before I reel them off, why don't you let me know? Does anyone know what RF needling does? So it is a combination between radio frequency and needling. So we've got both thermal and mechanical trauma actually happening in the one hit. So you've got your mechanical wound being created by the needles, and it creates a fractionated wound, so little tiny micro wounds in the skin. So whereby you've got collagen, elastin synthesis, you've got your cytokines, and you've got your growth factors coming to the area. And then what happens is your device releases a hit of heat, so radio frequency heat. Now, depending on your device, whether you've got insulated or non-insulated needles. So if they're insulated, all the energy, the heat, isn't in the surrounding area of the skin, but all the heat is actually occurring at the bottom of the needles rather than the side of the needles. So you don't get this collateral amount of damage. All the damage is actually occurring down the bottom of the needle, whilst actually allowing the sides of the needle. So that if your needle's going, say, all the way down here, for example, all of the skin or the tissue in this area is spared, and only the tissue down the bottom is heated. What that means is quicker wound healing. It means less downtime, and you're getting more of a dermal renewal, if you will. And so, and it depends. If you want to create more damage, then you might want to go with uninsulated. But we prefer insulated, and that way the impact isn't as hard, but we're getting a deeper dermal remodeling and renewal. So is that going to be good enough for skin laxity? Not so, because that RF is only on for, we're talking not even 1 or 2 seconds, if that. Some devices it's not even half a second, right? So it depends. But for contraction to actually occur, the heat must be in the skin for an extended amount of time. So that's not going to help with skin laxity. It's going to help with dermal remodeling, with rejuvenation, plumping up the skin, and so forth. The other thing you might look at for, depends, again, if there's a lot of skin laxity or hooding around the eyes, plasma fibroblasting is an amazing option. It's more of an older skin treatment. It works well with lax skin. So if you've got someone who's just got, fine lines and wrinkles, you're going to get a reduction in the fine lines and wrinkles, but you will see a much more pronounced effect and impact on someone who has actually got really loose skin. So if they've just got, a little bit of fine lines, like I said, and wrinkles, you'll see a bit of an impact. But under the eye area, where there's lots and lots of thin, loose skin, upper lid, that neck area, where there's lots of sagging in a mature skin, then amazing. Your plasma fibroblasting pen, if used correctly, will actually do an amazing job. And it'll also do an amazing job on body parts where, again, that client has lost laxity. So they're probably my top picks. And one other one before I move on to the next thing that I was going to talk about is HIFU, and you've probably heard me talk a little bit about HIFU here and there. It's becoming more and more popular. When I went to Singapore to Cosmoprof, they were everywhere. It is becoming so popular. So there's lots of different types of machines, but essentially the way HIFU works, and what HIFU stands for actually, first of all, is high intensity focused ultrasound. So utilizing ultrasound, we get tiny little microthermal zones, and these zones are, depending on the cartridge you use, it could be anywhere from 1.5 mil, this is for the face, 2 or 3 mil, right up to 4.5 mil. So what HIFU does is it actually affects and impacts the different levels, or different depths rather, of the skin. So when we're looking at our 4.5 cartridge, we're looking at the SMAS, which is quite deep, and what that does, and this is amazing for the jowls in particular, is it actually tightens up that SMAS, that muscle that sags and starts to sort of, you know, droop down and gives us those jowls. It actually tightens up that muscle in particular. And so what we're seeing is a more lifting, tightening effect on that area, and it gives you an amazing impact. Now, when you use the 4.5 mil cartridge, that's what that's good for. When we move to our 2 mil or a 3 mil cartridge, depending on how thin the skin is. If the skin's thin, your 2 or your 3 mil, well, really the 3 mil, you'll find you're going to be getting fat apoptosis. You're going to get lipolysis, so death of the fat cell. Now, we don't want to do that. So if the skin hasn't been prepped properly, if it's not nice and thick, then we avoid at all cost our 3 mil and we move to our 2 mil, or if you don't have a 2 mil, then you forego the 2 or the 3, or the 3 rather, and you go straight to the 1.5. But really quickly, our 2 or 3 mil is going to affect the dermis, and again, it's depositing these little microthermal zones to create lots and lots of heat, between 60 and 70 degrees of heat, to denature the collagen, and there's the transference of heat which causes tightening of the collagen bundles. Now, whilst we're not delivering heat for an extended period of time to cause contraction, instead, what we're doing is we're using a lot of heat over a short amount of time. We can't do both. We can't use a lot of heat over a long amount of time. It's either one or the other, otherwise you end up with burns. So with HIFU, we use more heat over a very short amount of time to cause tightening and also denaturation of the collagen bundle. So we then use the 3 mil to help plump up the skin and to help with the fine lines and the wrinkles. And then in the same treatment, we would then follow with our 1.5 mil cartridge. And what that does is actually is a little bit deeper than our papillary layer. Just think of needling, right? We needle it roughly what, depending obviously where, but most of the time it's between anywhere 0.7 mil to 1.5. So with our 1.5 cartridge, it's going a little bit deeper than our papillary layer, and that would be for your superficial fine lines, and that will give you a little bit of a glow, a bit of a pick-me-up. So if you've got a younger skin type, then the 1.5 is probably all that they need. But if you've got someone who is mature skin, then definitely I would look at doing all 3 cartridges. So your 4.5 followed by your 2 or your 3 followed by your 1.5 mil. Now, sometimes you'll find people, they're either time poor or money poor and they can't afford all 3 cartridges. What we could do is we could combine modalities, and as you all know, I love combining modalities. So what we could potentially do is do our 4.5 needling for your mature, the more older skin type, so anyone who's say 40 and above. Do your 4.5 to actually help with the jowls and lifting the jowls up, and then we could also do perhaps needling. Or what you could do is combine 3 treatments. You could do radio frequency, just normal radio frequency, followed by HIFU, and follow that then by our needling. So that way we're doing our 4.5, which is that deep there. Radio frequency is going to cause bulk heating of our dermis, so it's going to be affecting our dermis, whilst the 1.5 or even the 1 mil needling is going to our papillary layer, and that way you're actually getting more collagen, elastin, and also epidermal growth factors. With needling, you also get something called VEGF, which is vascular endothelial growth factor, and what that does is it actually strengthens actually helps with angiogenesis, so it strengthens the capillary network, and then your more blood, more capillaries, more nutrition, better toxin clearance, better oxygenation, and more growth factors. So when we're combining thermal with needling, you're getting so much more out of your devices than just doing needling or just doing HIFU or just doing RF. So combining the devices, you're getting much more of an impact. Now, when you're doing thermal and mechanical, so when you're doing, say, RF and HIFU and needling, you can't do those together like you would normally do with needling, like weekly. You'd have to wait several months. You'd have to, definitely with HIFU, you have to wait several months. With radio frequency, you could do weekly, and with your needling, we could do weekly. But when you're combining them, you do need to wait a little bit longer in between treatments, just to make sure that the skin is bouncing back and doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? So, what else? HIFU and IPL is another option as well. So your 580, 590 IPL is going to go roughly about 3 mil deep, and your HIFU, your 4.5, goes to 4.5. So you're getting two different depths of penetration. We're bulk heating with our IPL here, and we're actually going a little bit further down with our 4.5. So that's for the face. For the body, you're going to need to use different depths, of course, for the body, because it depends what you're trying to target. Are we trying to target, fat? Are we trying to target that lax skin? So that's just a different topic altogether for another day. Plus, I've only got 5 minutes to go. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Just think, younger skin, we just want a little bit of heat or mechanical trauma. With an older skin, we want a more of a thermal trauma where we're getting contraction. With the older skin, the other thing you need to consider is skincare. Do they recover and bounce back like a younger skin? And the answer is no. They take a lot longer. In fact, by the time they've reached 60 years old, their ATP levels, which is cellular energy, has actually dropped by 50%. So that means 50% collagen production. That means 50% wound healing. That means more inflammation. So an older skin, you're going to have to prepare them much more than you would a younger skin. So making sure that they're on their vitamin A, their C, their tyrosinase inhibitors, their antioxidants and so forth. Lots of amazing peptides out there at the moment. So making sure they're on their skincare 4 weeks before for a mature skin, and definitely on their skincare for at least 3 months. The reason is maturation takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So you want to make sure that they're definitely putting amazing ingredients onto their skin. And oral supplementation is something that's often overlooked. So making sure they're on their essential fatty acids, their zinc for wound healing. Magnesium is another building block that is often overlooked. Get them onto their magnesium, get them onto their N-acetylcysteine, NAC, which is also another building block. So there's so many different oral supplementation, and yes, it might be out of our scope of practice to be prescribing all these things, but all you could do is recommend they go see their healthcare practitioner or their naturopath, and their practitioner can help them choose certain vitamins that they can be taking orally to support their skin health. So it's definitely something that I would be recommending that they do along with their skincare. Not forgetting a sun protection, of course, and a good cleanser too. So oral supplementation, and then lifestyle. So an older skin, definitely making sure they're staying out of the sun while they're recovering during that maturation phase, making sure they're not adding any more trauma or inflammation unnecessarily, because that does cause aging. We're going to be covering that in our inflammaging workshop, of course. What machines, what devices cause aging, what rewinds or helps inhibit the aging process. So that's just sort of and in a nutshell, very quickly, half an hour is never a long time, enough time, but how you're going to be treating a more mature skin and taking into consideration there is a longer wound healing phase for your clients, and naturally they're going to need more treatments, and in between these treatments that we do, what are they doing at home? What are you doing? Are they getting LED done in between their treatments? That's something that I think is often overlooked. LED is so important. So getting them to come in, 2 or 3 times a week to get LED to recharge their skin cells batteries to make sure that their skin works at the optimal rate that it should. Ooh, there we go. All right. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of food for thought and something to think about. And next week, so next Wednesday, so same normal time at 7:30, you can join me. We're going to be talking about electroporation. So what is it? How does it work? What does it actually mean? And how it's going to benefit your not clinics, your clients. And we're going to be talking about what we're going to infuse into the skin. Is there particular products that we need to infuse in the skin? And also a sneak peek into a new device that we've got coming. I'm so excited about this device. Very unique, and I'm loving it. All right, have an amazing week. It's Thursday, so you've only got a few more days until next week. Hope you all have a great week, and I'll see you next week. All right, bye.